Okay, I am live and I hope this time the camera angle is right. The only problem is the Thrive logo is going to be inverted, but that's something I can work with. All right. Okay, let's see. Let's wait for a couple of minutes for everyone. Okay, so the people who are watching me right now, please tell me if the angle is right or not before we get started. Rutuja, can you please confirm if the angle is right? Okay, good. Well, thanks, Vidya. So, all right. I think a lot of people who had initially joined, I'm so sorry I was on the wrong angle and I'm waiting for you guys to join back. Give me a couple of minutes and yeah, great. Thank you so much, Rutuja. All right. So, my name is Mugdha Pradhan. I'm the founder of Thrive FNC and we make diseases disappear. And doing this session, especially this topic about plant-based diets, I had to dig really deep, learn a lot more, and bring up a lot of courage to actually do this one. Because you see, for the last 3 years, I have been practicing only a whole food plant-based diet. I have actually had a lot of professional collaborations, even with vegan organizations, because of this approach that I had to healing people. And what I'm going to say today is going to change that, and it would mean that I might get a lot of backlash or my credibility might get questioned, which I'm okay with, because my entire approach has always been about finding out the truth and sharing the knowledge that I have. So even if it means that whatever professional collaborations that might have built up over the last 3 years of working with other plant-based nutritionists, other vegan practitioners might go, I think it's only the right thing to do to share what I've learned about human health and nutrition and this entire plant-based agenda and where it's coming from and what does it really do to human health. So stay on, ask your questions. Members of the Thrive Tribe, I know a lot of you are here as well, because it's important that you listen to this. So whatever questions you might have, please ask them on our tribe group, the Telegram group that we have, because I would like to answer questions from the rest of them. That being, let's get started. So for those of you who are new to the concept of plant-based diets, it's basically the idea that animal foods are really bad for human health and animal protein needs to be taken out of the human diet. Animal products are to be banned permanently from the human diet, and what really brings about healing and what really is good for the planet and it's good for human health are just plants. And that's the basic ideology, right? Like plant-based nutrition is the only thing that's going to save humanity and the planet as a whole. And I subscribed to that ideology for a very, very long time as well. I believe that plant-based nutrition was the be-all and end-all of human nutrition. I have a master's in nutrition. I've studied it for so long. I've been practicing functional nutrition where we use blood tests to kind of learn how to heal any human being. And to me, it seemed like the data was really pointing me towards the direction of plant-based nutrition. So plant-based diets are primarily diets where there are no animal products at all. It's purely grains, whole grains. So I practice whole food plant-based, where we focus on whole grains, on pulses and legumes, on vegetables and on fruits. There is a difference between the vegan approach and a whole food plant-based approach, because vegans literally just shun anything that's made out of, that comes from animals, and everything else is okay. So even sugar is okay on a vegan diet, refined oils are okay on a vegan diet, vada pav, samosas, burgers that have vegetable patties in them are okay on a vegan diet, and that's like terrible for your health. So I'm not even going to go towards veganism, my focus in the past always was whole food plant-based, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So just so that we're clear, plant-based diets are diets in which we use only plant sources for nutrition and no animal products at all. All right. Now, I had planned a really nice slideshow, but I couldn't figure out how to connect my laptop and share my screen and also be present. So I'm going to just go through this slides here on my laptop. Maybe I'll just share them on the website. So the question really is, what are the health benefits that plant-based diets offer? And I am saying this as somebody who has worked with nearly, I think, about more than 200 people in the last 2.5 years, and I have primarily used plant-based nutrition, and I've always seen a progression from a disease state to a healthy state, right? So I'm not denying what plant-based nutrition has done for a lot of people who have come to me. So for example, people who come with diabetes and insulin resistance, and diabetes, like India is the diabetes capital of the world. I think there is something in the Indian genes that makes us more prone to diabetes and insulin resistance. And I've seen that plant-based diets, like whatever we followed at Thrive, has been really great at reversing diabetes and insulin resistance. We've seen really good results in terms of weight loss. People do lose a lot of weight when we've put them on plant-based nutrition. We've seen great results in terms of, things like aches and pains and, other chronic lifestyle related issues like high BP and gout and all of these things. So we've seen a lot of reversal happening in that, and I think that's primarily because one of the first things that we do when somebody comes to us is we eliminate a lot of the bad things that they've been eating. So see, everybody understands this concept of bio-individuality, where we know each human being has their own DNA and their own genes, and based on what they've been exposed to in the environment as they were growing up, their body's needs for healing are different. So we understand that. What a lot of people don't know is there is something called as biosimilarity as well, which means that there are certain things that are going to harm human health no matter what your genes are made of. So when we start our work at Thrive FNC, one of the first things we do is we eliminate all of these things that are going to be harmful to you, right? So we take you off processed foods. We teach you how to eat better. So we take you off sugar, we take you off processed foods, we take a person off gluten, and we take a person off dairy. And in doing that itself, a lot of these foods are inflammatory, right? So that level of inflammation starts coming down, and because that inflammation starts coming down, they start healing from within. So the body starts healing. So that's one of the reasons. Like, this is I'm being completely vulnerable here, right? I've questioned myself that how, if I'm seeing the need to talk about this, how is it that the work we've done has happened in the past? So elimination plays a big role in bringing about healing in a body. Now, the second thing that happens with plant-based nutrition is if you're eating a lot of salads, if you're eating a lot of fruits, if you're eating a lot of vegetables, these are, they take up a lot of space, they fill you up. So a lot of your tendency to snack on small things that aren't really nutrient dense goes down. Plus, plants are medicinal. There is no denying that, right? So there are a lot of plants that do have medicinal properties. So when you're sick with a chronic disease, when we recommend the herbs or when we recommend a particular plant for the kind of healing property it has, that brings about healing in your body. So there is no doubt that the approach that we have using plant-based nutrition initially to just reverse a lot of chronic illnesses, a lot of sicknesses that are there in the body is still useful. And we also bring in other modalities, right? We bring in meditation, we make you start becoming conscious about how much you're moving through the day, what are your patterns for, just allowing your body to move. We bring in these other modalities. So this as well helps a lot of people in healing. But what I have seen is, and we'll come to that, we'll talk more in detail about all of those things, that over time, just completely subsisting on plant-based nutrition starts creating problems. And we'll come to why that happens as well. So there are definite benefits in switching from what I would call as a standard Indian diet, where you might be eating like gulab jams and jalebis and samosas, or haldirams bhujia sev, or bourbon biscuits or digestive biscuits as snacks. Where you just don't know how bad these things are. When you eliminate that and we switch to eating whole, clean, plant-based foods, there is a definite shift in health towards the positive spectrum of, like, health is a spectrum, right? So you could be in an extreme negative, and from that negative, because you've now taken care of, you become more conscious of what's going in, you're now going towards the positive. So there's a definite positive shift with plant-based nutrition. For me, why I started questioning this is what we saw in the blood tests, especially of people who've been doing this for long. And secondly, the fact that the entire world was now suddenly talking about going vegan and talking about, actually not even plant-based, everybody is talking about being vegan, right? So the Game Changers came and Cowspiracy came and so many movies and then all these Hollywood award ceremonies, all these mainstream media people talking about plant-based, and then celebrities from Hollywood endorsing plant-based nutrition and veganism, and everybody was talking about veganism. And I've always been a skeptic, especially when the masses start following something. So for me, when everybody started veering towards this, I was like, what's going on, right? Like, where is this coming from? Because celebrities don't really have the world's health or as their interest. Like, making sure everybody's health is at their best is not really their interest. Popular people who we look up to as leaders don't really have everybody's health as their best interest, because if they did, they would have created lobbies for ending processed food. These are highly capitalistic people, and just to see them endorsing something. So I started going down that rabbit hole, and I started discovering what was going on. And a lot of them were now promoting fake meat, like soy-based products. And that's why I wanted to share my screen, because I wanted to share these studies and these articles of how there were a lot of investments going into creating meat replacements, right? Like, I think in India we have Good Dot, and then in the US we have Beyond Burger, and these are all fake processed products that are just people giving this idea that they're eating something that feels like meat, but it's not really meat. So why was everybody putting in their money and mouth and like speaking about this was another question. And then that just leads you into this entire New World Order agenda. And if anyone's interested in looking into that, you could Google that, like, what does the New World Order have to do with veganism, and you'll be blown with what you're going to find there, because it's all about amassing land and using it for their own. And I don't want to go into that right now. Maybe I'll do a separate talk on that with Johan, because he's so much more well versed with the NWO. But that's what triggered me to look deeper into this thing, that if everybody was going in one direction, then I better stop and ask what's going on. And then I went and relooked at the blood tests, and I have been practicing this for the last 3 years now. And I do my blood work at least every 3 months, and every time I could see my protein deficiency was getting worse and my iron deficiency was getting worse. And we started seeing this pattern repeating with our clients as well, our patients as well, that yes, initially they all would recover from a lot of their chronic health issues, but over time we would start seeing more deficiencies in their bodies, right? So protein was really difficult. We put them on a lot of protein supplements. The other deficiencies that we saw, especially with women, we started seeing iron deficiencies. We started seeing selenium and iodine deficiency. And, then it became a question of really how many. So every time we see a deficiency, we supplement them for that, right? So we send them a link to a supplement that they can order, and then they have to take that supplement every day so that they get that nutrient in. And I realized that the entire focus and the aim was on healing people with food. And now what was happening, because food was deficient in a few things, we had to rely on supplementing with so many nutrients. So no one really is getting sicker, but I don't like this thing that's happening of us having to bring in so many supplements just to make sure that people's deficiencies are getting covered, right? So that's a big problem with plant-based nutrition. And thankfully, we are there to support our tribe. So people who complete our program continue to be part of our tribe, and then we check their blood tests whenever they want us to. So with them, we are there to tell them, Baba, you've become deficient in this nutrient, now we need to supplement you with this, or B12 is something that they have to take for life. So, that thing that you are now depending on something that's manufactured again, just to fill in a nutrient gap, is something that stopped resonating with me. See, there are some basic supplements that all of us need to take because we just are unable to get enough of it, like vitamin D. The amount of time we'd have to spend in the sun to make sure our vitamin D stores are replenished every day. Most of us aren't able to do that. So supplementing with vitamin D on a daily basis is something that I would recommend. But iron and protein and selenium and iodine, which can so easily be available from food, if we were needing to supplement for that, then there was definitely a problem with this whole food plant-based approach itself. And the thing is, if you don't supplement with these nutrients, they're all vital for your health, and you might not realize that at the beginning you're suffering from a deficiency, but deficiencies build up over time. So 6 months of a deficiency and boom, you'll have some health issue that happens out of it. Not enough selenium and iodine for enough amount of time and you'll have a thyroid problem. So it's very important to make sure you're getting all the nutrients your body needs. Secondly, this is what a lot of even vegans and plant-based practitioners don't know, is plants actually have a lot of toxins. See, the thing is, if you try to catch an animal, it has its limbs, right? So it's going to run away from you. It's not very easy to catch an animal and eat it for food. With plants, what happens is they are all stationary. And you just go to a plant and you can pluck out the leaves, you can just take the fruit, you can just harvest the entire plant itself. And there is not a single organism on this planet that will willingly give up its life, except some humans. But even then, plants don't really want to die, right? Plants are not really there as martyrs that, oh, take my life, I'm here, I just eat me right now. They do develop a lot of defense mechanisms, not just against humans, but also against animals that eat them. So plants create a host of, for example, antifungal molecules. If they feel like a fungal infection is going to spread on their leaves, they create a lot of anti-insect molecules when they feel that there's some insect attacking them. So plants have the ability to create their own defense mechanisms to prevent being eaten, because they don't have the ability to move away from their predator. And a lot of people don't realize that these defense mechanisms that are there in plants actually work like toxins in our body. So see, for example, gluten, right? Like wheat itself has 2-3 things in it. One of them is gluten. So gluten is so inflammatory. People think only those who have the celiac disease should not be eating gluten, but gluten can create inflammation and irritation of the gut and a lot of health problems even in people who do not have celiac disease. So gluten is there in wheat, and it's an anti-nutrient, it's a toxin that actually creates health problems in humans. Apart from gluten, there are also amylase inhibitors in wheat. So a lot of plant-based people and vegans actually think wheat is great, and they go for this emmer wheat and kapli wheat and I don't know what other wheats, and they think wheat is okay because it's plant-based, but they're eating something that's actually killing them from the inside. And this is slow. It's not like a quick poison, right? It's slow. So that's one. Secondly, there are this category of foods that are called lectins, which again are present in plants, and these impact human health. So kidney beans, right? So many of us actually, when we eat red kidney beans, rajma, experience so much gas and bloating. And this is the problem when you actually pick an ideology for your practice. So even with my own self, because I selected plant-based nutrition, I really love this planet and I don't want to do anything to harm it, right? So when I had bought into this ideology that eating animals is going to harm the planet and I'm taking another life, and that consciousness, I mean, karmically it's bad and all of that. When I would eat these beans and they would cause some amount of bloating, I just assumed that it's like normal part of plant-based nutrition. And now I'm thinking, like, why did I even normalize that, right? Anything that is creating discomfort in your body is a clear signal from your body that don't eat this. It's not okay for me. So, and a lot of plant-based eaters, because they know they need their protein, actually switch to eating lots of dals and pulses, and these things then cause gas and bloating and make life really awkward. But because you bought into the ideology, you live with that discomfort. So red kidney beans have lectins, which are plant defense mechanisms and can cause inflammation and trouble in your gut. Lectins are also present in wheat, lectins are also present in peanuts. A lot of plant-based eaters, for example, drown themselves in peanut butter because they think it's a good source of protein, but they don't know that peanuts can have mold, which can release aflatoxins and poison your bloodstream, or even lectins. Soy is such a favorite of all vegans and plant-based eaters because, again, protein, right? So they know that the diet is deficient, and then to make up for it, they eat these things. Now soy, and you just have to Google like soy and New World Order and you'll see where the soy push comes from. But I'll just tell you what's wrong with soy and why it shouldn't ever be eaten by any human being. So soy has isoflavones and phytoestrogens, which are basically things that mimic your hormones. So if you're a man and if you're eating soy, you're sending plant-based estrogen into your body. Estrogen is a female hormone. In fact, in Toronto, when I've been there, I've seen estrogen-based supplements for women who've undergone menopause. Soy-based supplements for estrogen in women who've undergone menopause. So whether soy is genetically modified or not, soy itself contains these phytoestrogens and isoflavones as part of its defense mechanism. And this is going to mess with your hormones. Like, nothing should play with your hormones. Your hormones are what kind of maintain homeostasis in your body. And then a lot of plant-based, so soy has protease inhibitors. Again, a lot of pulses and legumes have protease inhibitors. What are protease inhibitors? So protease is an enzyme that's required for digesting proteins. And plants produce this enzyme as a defense mechanism, basically to tell that animal that even if you eat me, you're not going to get your nutrition, right? So there are protease inhibitors in plants that prevent your proteins from being broken down and digested, which is why now I understand we started seeing such high levels of protein deficiency in people who've been on long-term plant-based diets, including me, right? So my protein levels kept dropping, and I'll talk how that impacted me symptomatically. But soy has very, very high levels of protease inhibitors, and it's got everything. Like it's got hormone disruptors, it's got enzymes that will prevent protein from being digested, it's got lectins, it's got goitrogens, which are things that interfere with how your thyroid functions. So soy should definitely be out of any human diet. And then there are other things, right? So for example, grapefruit, which was touted for its antioxidant capability, actually interferes with an enzyme called C450, which is what the liver uses for detoxification. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's a lot of wrong information about plant-based nutrition or plant-based food, or just plants, eating plants being the be-all and end-all of life. Now, why did I believe this was sustainable is I was looking for a diet that I could follow no matter where I lived, no matter where I traveled, and that had minimal impact on the earth. And this is where this entire, I'd read wrong information about how animal consumption is leading to global warming. So this entire global warming thing itself needs to be looked at from a more skeptical perspective. You will see that Earth has gone through its cycles of changes, right? Like the heat and the cold and all of that has gone on for billions of years, and we're just part of another cycle of warming up. our habits have very little to do with the overall changes in the solar system. Not that I'm saying what we do is best for planet Earth, but it has a very small role to play. See, I am not recommending. I still think that this life, like this livestock breeding, where and like farm raised animals and chickens all put in a coop and they're given antibiotics and hormones, that kind of breeding is terrible and it's bad for your health as well as the planet. But the thing about eating animal foods is the biggest reason for global warming. I think that's a completely NWO driven agenda that all of you should kind of go through once and understand that it's not really real. So because I had believed that, I thought that eating plant-based is the most sustainable thing to do, and now I'm changing my stance on that. So the problems that I spoke of, right, of plant-based nutrition, I have seen deficiencies happen for sure of multiple nutrients. In my own case, I started losing a lot of hair after a few months of being on plant-based diets, and no matter how many supplements I took, that wouldn't stop because my protein deficiency wasn't getting corrected at all. Now see, again what happens, each person is different in the way they digest and absorb different foods. So maybe somebody is exceptional at being able to digest dals and pulses and getting all the protein that they need. Maybe somebody is not. And this is where that entire concept of bio-individuality comes in. Whether it's how we detox our body or whether it's how we absorb nutrition, a lot is determined by our genes itself. So not everybody is capable of absorbing all the nutrients that they need from plant-based diets. And in my case, my recovery time post-workout was much slower. See, my energy levels, I had diabetes, so that got fixed. And since then, I've never ever gone into the diabetic zone again. But I started losing hair and my thyroid levels started getting messed up, and I started presenting with multiple deficiencies in my own body. So what I did for myself, just to see, because I always experiment on myself before I make any recommendations, is I started adding small amounts of animal protein in my diet. And it took maybe a month or so, but I could start seeing changes in the outward symptoms as well as my internal blood tests. So this is just me, right? Now I'll just go on to the theory of why animal proteins or animal products are important in the human diet. What happens is with animal nutrition, like if you are going to eat, let's say mutton, or if you're going to eat liver, or if you're going to eat, like in India, beef is not even available, but if you're abroad and if you're going to eat that, your body finds it much easier to absorb all the nutrients from there. Also, what has happened is animals themselves have processed a lot of the plants that they've eaten, and they've created these nutrients in their most bioavailable form in their body. So when you eat these nutrients, when you eat animal meat, you actually get these nutrients in the exact form that your body needs them. It's so hard for me to say this, you won't believe it, because for 3 years I've been saying no to animals and just eat plants, but this is the truth and I have to share it. So when you eat animal protein, or when you eat animal liver, for example, when you eat animal organ meat, you're actually getting the nutrients that your body needs in the most bioavailable form. From the time I added animal meat back into my diet, I am just on a basic vitamin D supplement, and then I am taking, I even stopped my omega-3 supplementation. I had a drawer full of supplements just to take care of the deficiencies that were happening in my body over time, because I was plant-based for the last 3 years, right? So I have completely had to, like, I don't need so many supplements. I can just eat real food, which is what my body needs, and I can get through the day with minimal energy loss. So the problems are blood tests. what we see in blood tests, the deficiencies that have been created, and secondly, the toxins that are there in plants, right? So what I have learned now is plants do have a place in healing a body because they are medicinal in nature, but you won't really take all your medicines all your life, right? You'll take a medicine as long as your body needs to recover, and then once you're done with it, you will stop that medicine. So a cyclical nature of eating plants is what I would recommend more. And then not all plants are created equal. So if some plants are going to be filled with toxins for your body, it's better you leave that plant from your diet. Thirdly, you and your body will give you feedback about what works best, right? So once you eliminate and clean up all the junk that you've been sending in and you start eating really clean, then you learn more and more about how a particular food reacts with your body. Some foods will give you a lot of energy, some foods will bring you down, some foods will make you feel weird, some foods will create gas and bloating. So it's always good to use that feedback mechanism to understand what a food is doing in your body. And animal foods do have a place in human nutrition. We cannot really have strong, healthy bodies if you cut out animal sources of nutrients from your diet. Now, what choice does somebody, how does somebody choose what to eat? Now, this depends a lot on your beliefs, your ethics, and what you really want. Like, a lot of people would not even consider eating animal foods because they don't want to harm animals. And then you better supplement really well, right? Because you can't choose this and say, I'm going to live with the consequences, because it's going to create disease for you. So you have to know, if you're choosing a particular stance, you have to know the fallouts of that and the pros of that. So if you're somebody who's choosing going plant-based on ethics and on that from that perspective of animals have consciousness, and then you don't want to really hurt them and take their body for consumption, you better learn what are the deficiencies that are there in your body and you fix those, because otherwise that will definitely create disease, right? So if you're deficient in iron for really long, especially for women, your reproductive health is going to be super messed up. Your thyroid is going to be messed up, because even thyroid needs iron. And then your energy levels are going to drop. Then you're going to be really dependent on tea and coffee for a very long time. If your diet is deficient in selenium and iodine, because selenium, we used to recommend Brazil nuts to people, but not everybody absorbs selenium from Brazil nuts that well. Plus, nuts do have fat and, the other, like we spoke of peanuts having lectins, Brazil nuts might have other toxic ingredients in it. So make sure that you get your blood work done if you're plant-based and see where you're deficient and fix those deficiencies. Like I said, selenium iodine deficiency can create a thyroid problem. B12, B complex, the entire B range of vitamins, if you're not getting enough of those, everything from mental health to your energy levels to, again, thyroid and adrenals and your reproductive system, everything is going to get impacted. If you're zinc deficient, then fertility is so immunity goes down if you're zinc deficient, and fertility goes down, right? And now with COVID and that entire fear that everybody has, immunity is a buzzword. So know that you need high levels of zinc to maintain your immune levels. And then if you're just taking a zinc supplement to maintain zinc status and then you're not getting enough copper from your diet, then you're going to become copper deficient, and then you're going to have other blood related problems because you're deficient in copper now. So nutrition is such a fine balance, right? Like, even we are learning. I don't claim to know everything about nutrition. And the day I claim to know that, you can stop consulting me as a nutritionist, right? I learn every day. And what I know is people get sick when they have deficiencies. People get sick when they have a lot of toxins in their body. People get sick when their microbiome is imbalanced, the pathogen and all of that load. So and then people get sick if they have too much stress. So out of all of these, stress is something that requires a different healing modality altogether. Pathogens and the microbiome needs, again, a different level of management. But toxins and deficiencies is something that you need to really understand deeply if you're going to use a lot of plants in your dietary protocol. My recommendation right now to people is, when you come to us, initially for the first 3 months, when you come to us from a state of disease, right, we will continue to use plants, but we'll use them as medicine until we see some reversal in the diseases that have occurred in your body. After that, my recommendation would be to bring in some kind of animal products into your diet, because I don't want you getting deficient. And that's something that I wanted to talk of, that animal foods definitely have a big place in the human diet. There are some people whom I have been listening to who are completely carnivore, which means they have rejected all plant-based options and they're eating animals head to tail, and they say that their health has never been better. And I can understand why that's happening, right? Because when they eat an animal head to tail, they're getting all the nutrients that they need for their body from that animal. So the comparison that is given is like, plants have a different operating system and animals have a different operating system. So trying to use nutrients from a plant for a human, which is an animal, is too much work. Like, if you have like a Mac and a Windows operating system and you're trying to send files from Mac to Windows, then the file needs to be converted before Windows machine can use it. It's the same thing. Versus if you just eat animal protein or animal meat or animal organs directly, you're going to get all the nutrients in the most bioavailable form. So if somebody has been plant-based for really long, then there would be deficiencies that have occurred in their body. So that's what I wanted to primarily talk about. I think I've covered all my points, and my nice presentation is just a presentation on my laptop. But I will look at questions now and I'll answer them, and then please send more questions. If you want references to the articles that I've read, which I can't share because I'm using my phone to do this, I will post them in the comment section at the end of this talk. All right, so let me see. So Vishal is saying chicken is so good and it will provide you full of protein. Now here, see, one very important point to understand is when I'm saying add animal protein back into your diet, you have to look at it as medicine, okay? Like what I have seen, the tendency that people have is they use animal meat as a celebratory thing. Like I grew up in a family of carnivores, so every time we would meet, food would be the center point of meeting, and then like the way food was treated or the way animals were treated for that is completely like it's a wrong approach. So there would be chicken and there would be fish and there would be eggs and there would be biryani, and if you're going to eat animal protein from that perspective, you're still doing your body a disservice, because you're not looking at food as information, you're not looking at food as medicine. You're going to look at food as something that you're going to use to celebrate, and then you're probably going to overeat, or you're going to eat the wrong kind of animal protein. Now when I say the wrong kind of animal protein, I speak specifically of animals that are bred for human consumption in factory farms, right? So chickens and poultry farms, they are sprayed. I mean, I had a friend who worked in a poultry farm, and he told me that it's so bad, those living conditions, because sometimes the chicken just dies and nobody even cleans up. So other hens are just walking over it. And then because that rotting flesh is there are maggots and all that. So prevent any other cross infection, they just put a lot of antibiotics in that feed itself, right? So the chicken is loaded with antibiotics. They put in hormones to kind of give you a higher yield. So if you're going to eat chicken from conventional sources, from factory farm sources, I mean, even spiritually, that's such a wrong thing to do for somebody to raise animals like that. Besides which, all these other harmful things are going into your body. So when you pick your animal foods, you have to be very careful about where it comes from. Like pasture raised, grass fed animals are the best, those that have been grown in their natural conditions. And when I speak of the spiritual aspect, for me, the first time I had to add animal protein back into my diet, I actually, it was very hard for me, right? Because I had given it up for all those reasons as well, right? The animal consciousness. And I literally stood outside the store and cried. But I know one thing, that I exist on this planet, and to do my best here, I have to take care of my body. And if my body needs that nutrition, then it needs that nutrition, right? So now I bless whatever little meat I eat on a daily basis, I bless it with so much gratitude that thank you for coming here. So be very careful about the animal meats that you're eating, if it's coming from factory farms and if it's grown as livestock, because that's not the best meat to eat. Anjana is asking, what other deficiencies did you see in plant-based diet? So Anjana, with women especially, iron, B12, B6, all the B complex vitamins, protein, selenium, iodine, and zinc we anyway supplement, because most of them are zinc deficient even when they come to us. But these are the nutrients that everybody is deficient in, plus the omega-3 fatty acids. So omega-3 fatty acids are essential fats that your body can't make. Like you could have a very low cholesterol diet and your body will still make the cholesterol you need from whatever fat is coming in from food. But essential fatty acids like omega-3s, your body can't make. You have to supply it through your diet. And we've seen that even if we include a lot of flax seeds and a lot of chia seeds and all of that, people are still deficient in omega-3, so we have to supplement for it. So yeah, those are the deficiencies. But again, see, you might have other chronic deficiencies that have developed over time. So also what happens is there are things like oxalates. I think Padma Shri also mentioned that. So these oxalates and phytates are again plant-based anti-nutrients that are anyway there. And if you're eating like maybe lots of spinach, right, these oxalates can bind to other nutrients and excrete them from the body. So, or they can bind with calcium and form calcium oxalate stones. So if you've been plant-based for too long, there's a very high chance that these concurrent deficiencies have occurred, not because your diet is deficient, but because these anti-nutrients are binding with them. Can desi wheat also create health problems, or is it just GM wheat? No, all forms of wheat are inflammatory in nature. Because see, gluten, whether wheat is desi or whether it is GMO, gluten is part of wheat. Even if it's emmer wheat, that khapli gahu, right? Gluten is there in it. That's an essential part of the wheat structure. And gluten is not just in wheat. Gluten is there in rye and barley and kamut and 2-3 other grains. And gluten is the one that's really creating a lot of gastrointestinal problems for us. In fact, there's a book called The Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter that you could read up if you just wanted to understand how terrible gluten is, how it can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and also create a lot of excitatory effects in the brain, and how a lot of neurological issues that he has seen in children are triggered because of gluten. So you remove gluten from the diet, anything basically wheat and maida and anything that contains gluten, you remove that, and these kids who have like hyperactivity and they've been labeled as ADHD or whatever it may be, a lot of their symptoms get resolved. So wheat is a definite no-no. Yes, so phytic acid oxalates, I just spoke about that, but yeah, you're right, they are plant-based anti-nutrients. And I think, see, not everybody's body processes oxalates in the same way. But some people's bodies can create stones with oxalates, right? So that is where that entire bio-individuality comes in, that like wheat is bad for any human being, but spinach might not necessarily create the same impact in every person's body. But they do exist, and it is good to be aware of these anti-nutrients. Isn't Rajma a good source of protein? Naveen, see, that's the thing, right? So when we say Rajma is a good source of protein, we've just seen the nutrient table. Like when you search 100 grams of Rajma and protein content, it says 24 grams of protein. So yes, like that, if you look at it, it is a good source of protein. But for you to eat the amount of Rajma to get your protein needs on a daily basis, it's a lot of Rajma, and that much Rajma does create like a lot of gas and bloating, right? So in fact, I was listening to this Dr. Zoe Harcomb earlier in the day, and she was talking of a study where they did to kind of measure the emissions, which is basically they wanted to measure the breakdown of the gas that comes out of somebody's body. So when we're talking of beans and legumes, a little toilet humor is going to come in. So they wanted to measure the breakdown of like the gas that comes out of somebody's body when they eat a lot of beans. And so what they did was, this is I think in the late 1990s, they fed all their participants 200 grams of kidney beans and then measured the like they saw what was the composition of the gas. I don't even know who were the experimenters who agreed to be part of that experiment. But what they saw was these people who are eating so many kidney beans, right? So their gas was very high in methane, and they are blaming cows for global warming, right? So I think the people who eat a lot of rajma are also equally responsible. So rajma is very, very hard to digest. It has what we spoke of as lectins, right? And unless you cook it really well, unless it's been soaked for long, and unless it's been cooked for long, people experience a lot of digestive issues with it. So once in a way, it's okay, it's delicious, right? But if you're going to eat it on an everyday basis as your source of protein, it's going to create a lot of digestive dysfunction for you. So even in our protocols, when we ask people to eat dals and legumes in the initial phases, right, we ask them to stick to the easy to digest ones. That's the moongs and the tur dals and masoor and all of those. Yeah, Padma Shri, with soy, genetic modification is a big, big concern. In fact, a lot of the plant-based foods that we eat aren't even in the form that they might have been maybe 50 years ago, right? Because we want them to look in a certain way, we want them to taste a certain way. We've meddled with a lot of genes, with a lot of plants, and that also could be one reason why they impact our health. Maybe that's why they're so low in nutrients, because if you look at wild greens, right, or wild vegetables, they actually have more nutrients per 100 grams compared to a cultivated plant. So GM foods definitely are bad. They interfere with our genes also, and they just are then lacking in so much nutrition. Anjana, are all dairy products inflammatory? Ghee, butter, cheese, yogurt? So dairy, I have seen repeatedly, it creates problems, whether it's organic or whether it's not. It is quite inflammatory. I know some people say that A2 milk suits them, but I have seen, so this is specifically with the Indian gene. We are really prone towards diabetes. It's very easy for us to get diabetic or insulin resistant. And in the work that we have done, I have seen that dairy, the kind of fat that comes in from milk, it's saturated fat, but it kind of goes and starts settling into your cells, and it becomes what's called as intramyocellular fat, and it does trigger insulin resistance in people. So people who do like keto completely, where they've cut out carbs, like there are no carbs at all, and then they're eating ghee and cheese, they might report that their insulin levels are lower and they don't have any blood sugar problems at all. But when these people actually start eating carbohydrates, right, even complex ones like whole grains, then their blood sugar levels shoot up. So for me, I have not seen enough evidence to say dairy products are good, because I have seen it create a lot of issues from skin to digestion. People do say that dairy creates problems. Same thing, organic dairy also, right? So dairy itself is something that I still don't recommend. Maybe one day I'll learn and I'll say it's okay, but for now, based on all the work we've done, dairy is still a no-no. Vaishali, how good are plant-based diets for PCOS? So like I'm saying, right, we work with a lot of PCOS patients also. And see, with PCOS, the root causes, so always when there is a disease, the question to ask is what is creating this disease? And once you find the root cause of the disease, then you start reversing it. So with PCOS, what we found is most of the women have a very high level of toxins in their bodies. They have a lot of deficiencies, and they have insulin resistance. So when we are focusing on reversing insulin resistance and bringing in a toxin load, especially, environmental toxins like maybe hormones that have come in, endocrine disruptors that have come in, then for that much time we take them off all animal-based foods. But like I said, later in time, at some point, animal foods have to be brought in as medicine, especially to make sure there are no deficiencies occurring. But we have seen very good results in the work we've done, especially with PCOS. We've been able to take women off their medication, and their periods have started coming on their own, though the duration might not be a 28-29 day cycle to begin with. At least their periods start coming on their own, and of course they lose weight, and the other symptoms start resolving. The whatever is happening in terms of their hair and skin and everything else that comes with PCOS. So the menstrual pain, all of that goes off. periods get a little more regulated, we can take them off medication for sure. It's just that in a later stage, I would now think of adding animal-based proteins for the ones who are ready to eat them. Thank you, Padmashri. Kavita, how about vegetarian? So like I said, for the tribe, we'll answer questions on the Thrive tribe, or I'll do a separate Zoom session there. And you've just started with our protocol, so hold on, we've got your back, don't worry. So Padmashri, regarding phytoestrogens, one should be consuming a whole lot of soy to really see the effects in men, right? So this is the thing, right? I think what people don't understand is the idea of a lot. Like if you look at medicines are given to you in milligram doses, and even those milligram doses are enough to make an effect in your body, right? Like in fact, if you overdose on a particular medicine, even in terms of milligrams, it can lead to death. People don't understand when they eat food, they're eating it in kilograms. So it is a lot of food that you eat anyway. And I know that soy phytoestrogens, like if you're drinking soy milk, if you're eating tofu, if you're eating soya chunks, they will start creating this effect in men. How soon will it be seen in a particular man? That I can't predict, right? Because then it depends on that man's pathways and what else is happening. But for sure, even the smallest quantity of soy is going to start creating some or the other impact in everybody's body. Like you should, like I'll share a Google link about, I'll share a research link about that also, about soy and how it reduces the androgens, right? The testosterone levels go down, and then men become more feminine in even their external outward appearance and even their entire personality traits. Consumption of mushrooms have increased for zinc by vegetarians. I still don't see zinc levels going up just with diet. I think that's one of the reasons is because our soil quality itself has become so deficient with all the green revolution that came. Our soil just doesn't have all the nutrients that are needed for our plants to be rich with those nutrients. So zinc is something that we see no matter how healthy your diet is. So consuming mushrooms, I really haven't seen that result in the blood test that we've done. Maybe you might have other data to counter that. I love you too, Surashri. Thank you for being there in this journey. Padmashri, so what is the take on egg eating vegetarians? See, with eggs, I am still researching this, but what I know is the egg whites actually have avenin, and some people are extremely allergic to the egg albumin as well. Because egg allergies are very, very common, right? So I am still undecided on eggs. Like my recommendation, if somebody has to include animal protein, would be to go towards the larger animals, because with chicken also, what I've learned is chickens are being fed a lot of grains, especially the farm raised, the factory farm chickens, right? So they're being fed a lot of corn and those kind of grains, which increase the PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids in the chicken meat itself. And that might also be very high in the egg. And then the omega-3 ratio might get changed. And those PUFAs are quite inflammatory, right? Because they're coming from corn. So my recommendation, if at all, if somebody has to include animal protein, would be to look at the larger animals like mutton, like goat and sheep, and then if you're out of India, then even access to beef, if it's possible, then something like that. Would being a pescatarian or vegetarian be good? So pescatarians are people who eat fish, and the problem with fish is our oceans are really contaminated, right? So this is why eating animal protein is a fine balance, because fish have so much mercury in them now. There are microplastics that are found in fish. There is really no way to control what a fish would eat when it's in the ocean. And then you have the PCBs and the other chemical compounds that have gone into the water because our industry effluents are running into that. So fish have a lot of toxins in them, and I still don't recommend fish. If you have a farm and if you can raise your own fish and name them like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe then you can eat fish. But right now the market fish is not something I would recommend at all. Aditya, so what about the problems of indigestion that arises from lack of fiber in meat? So fiber doesn't improve digestion. What fiber does is it improves your bowel movement. Okay, so there are two separate things. Digestion is basically the breakdown and absorption of whatever you have eaten. If you are referring to lack of fiber leading to constipation, I'm not saying, I still am not convinced about going completely 100% carnivore. I'm saying be an omnivore, because even if you look at how our body is designed, and that's what I speak of as metabolic flexibility, that you should be able to eat different things depending on what is available to you. It's just that meat might be a better option for nutrients and plants might be more of a survival kind of an option. So if you're eating the right kind of plants and if you're getting some of your daily calories from plant-based foods, then if you're eating meat also, you're not going to get indigestion. Like your body is going to be able to eliminate, and you will be able to have a bowel movement even if you're eating meat. If you are suffering from digestive issues when you added meat, then maybe there is some other thing that's happening in your body, right? Where your gut microbiome might be imbalanced. But what I've seen is if you increase a lot of fiber, so fiber was made an essential nutrient somewhere in the last 10-15 years, I think, not even before that. And if you suddenly increase a lot of fiber in your body, that leads to more digestive problems. So one needs to be careful about fiber also. But fiber's purpose is to help your body eliminate. Fiber doesn't get absorbed as fiber in the body, right? If you eat, let's say a fruit, your fruit will get broken down into many things, and a lot of things from that will get absorbed as different nutrients. But fiber is just like roughage that pushes things out. So if you're having digestive issues after adding meat, then talk to us. We'll help you figure out what's the root cause of that. Vaishali, what is your call on thalassemia minor, premenopausal women having so do they need to be on any supplements? See, this is a question I can't answer unless I look at your blood tests, because there'll be so many things that are happening in parallel along with your thalassemia minor, right? Because if you're thalassemia minor, your iron levels are going to be super low. So that's a question I really can't answer like this. I need to look at your blood work to be able to give you a better answer. Prem, how can I replace animal proteins? Are animal proteins that much essential? That's what I just spoke of, right? Like for the last 3 years, I've been trying to figure out how to make sure my protein levels are optimal without animal proteins. And see, this entire thing about protein is not about building my body or like, having like the strongest bicep or something like that. That's not even my objective. My objective is like until the day I die, I want to really be healthy without any health problems. And for that to happen, proteins are essential. Like peptides are used in so many functions in the body, including making hormones. So maintaining optimal protein levels in your body are important, and it's very hard to keep those protein levels optimal if you don't supplement. So supplementing is the only way, like pea protein, quinoa, brown rice, a combination of these will give you all the essential 9 amino acids. So supplementing with that is what will help you prevent that protein deficiency to a large degree. But then you're investing, like it's expensive, like having to supplement with protein supplements every day. Plus usually if you don't find the right one, right, there'll be so many additives in that. They add sucralose and they add aspartame to make it sweet, and then all these flavors and essences. So it's a mini chemical factory in that. So finding the right protein supplement also becomes important. Anjana is asking, can you get omega-3 from flax seeds and chia seeds? No, so we tried that. We tried walnuts, flax seeds and chia seeds, but people's inflammatory markers kept showing that they had an omega-3 deficiency, and that wasn't getting fixed. So we had to add an omega-3 supplement. So if you're plant-based, then you need a supplement for omega-3 for sure. Recently, scientists made meat in lab for us to eat for the purpose of taste. I wouldn't touch, like I would run as far away from that as I can if it was meat made in a lab. I still recommend staying natural, eating the way nature has designed food for us. So if it comes from a plant, if it comes from land, eat it. If it was made in a plant, run away from it. Vidya, the China study, right? I used it as a base for even what I was doing. And I really thought it was good. But later I started looking for who funded the China study. And what I found out wasn't very pleasant. China study has been funded by Kellogg's, the people who make cereals in a box and tell us on TV that these are fortified with all the nutrients and get our kids addicted to it. So now I have become so skeptical about any research papers or any books also. I always look for who's funded this, and if you follow that trail of who has funded this, then you'll see where is the intention of that particular study coming from. Maithili, the milk and milk products question I already answered, but for, like I said, you can go back and look at it. It's not something that I would recommend. Sweet corn is also GMO'd. So, like anything that is GMO'd is a no-no for sure. It is not recommended for the human body. How often would you recommend meat for somebody who has thyroid and BP issues? So Anjana, here first we have to figure out what's creating those health issues. Then we reverse those. Then we bring in meat. At least that is my approach, because if you're not eating the right kind of animal protein, if you're eating the wrong kind, then that can worsen your health issues, right? So please see, usually BP issues are caused by a dysfunctional liver or a dysfunctional adrenal. So let's first focus on fixing that and then figuring out when to add animal protein. So if you have thyroid and BP issues, please share your lab reports with us. I'll comment, or even Rutuja can comment on the email ID on which you can send that, so we can take a look at it and figure out what's really going on in your body. Yes, Vidya, vegetarians excluding dairy products need a supplement. Otherwise, it's very hard to get the nutrients you need. No, Maithili, I think you should watch the talk. I spoke of soy quite in detail. So soy is not something that needs to be consumed at all. Please leave it from your diet. Almonds, I haven't, so I was looking for toxins from each of the foods that we speak of, right? So almonds, I didn't yet find any data that says that it has any anti-nutrients. Maybe it has lectins, which if I find, I'll let you know. But soy, definitely no. Milk is inflammatory. Even my own daughter, right, she knows this. Like, she knows when she drinks milk, it gives her a lot of gas and cramping and bloating. Even if it's like organic milk, which actually is easily available now, it gives her health problems. So I think kids also don't need to have milk, because if it is about calcium, if it was about bone strength, then even things like bone broth can help, because that's like more bioavailable calcium. But milk, like when you look at a food, right, you have to look at the net positive and the net negative impact. And milk has too many negative impacts for me to even say that, okay, have this. What supplements? Supplements again depends on blood tests. Yeah, thanks, Johan. Yeah, so then there you go. Almonds are a no-no. I didn't have time to look into almonds today, so thanks a lot. So oxalate is one of the phytonutrients, I mean the plant-based anti-nutrients that we spoke of earlier, and if it's going to bind with your nutrients and if it's going to create stones and stuff like that in your body, then it's not a good idea. Soaked almonds are not healthy. See, the thing is, the kind of effort you have to put into making sure that that plant-based food is not going to hurt you, then makes me really question, is it worth eating that, right? Why are you eating almonds? Because somebody told you almonds are healthy. What makes a food healthy? A food that is healthy should give you some nutrient without creating any health problems for you. So if it's just a habit that you've gotten into of soaking almonds and eating them, then question that habit, right? But if we know that it has oxalates in it, then I wouldn't recommend it. Alright, I think we've gone on for an hour, and are there any other questions? that I can answer. But I will share the links that I wanted to share with my screen share, and I will figure out this tech issue for the next one. Like, how do I share my screen and still stream live? Thank you so much for being here and for hearing me out. This was one of the most difficult discussions I've had. Like, even when I have to say eat liver and eat muscle and do bone broth, it is hard for me. But it is important that you know it, that animal foods are important. So if mass media, if celebrities, if Hollywood and all of them are pushing you to go vegan, and then you want to do it because of that peer pressure, think carefully about your choice, because it will lead to deficiencies. It can create a lot of toxic issues in your body. And my biggest problem is the deficiencies, right? So if any nutrition plan requires you to pop in so many supplements, then it's not a great nutrition plan. So that's about it. So I stopped losing hair when I added mutton back into my diet, and that's such a win for me, because otherwise my floor would be strewn with hair. Okay, you're welcome, Anjana. Thanks, Johan. Alright, any other questions? Or we can end it here. You can leave your questions in the comment section. Yeah, the thing is though, when you're consuming calcium to bind the oxalate, then that's the thing, right? Like, why would you eat something that you have to counter with so many other options? That's what doesn't make sense to me anymore. Alright. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys. This video will be saved on the page, so you can come back and refer to it. And I look forward to, like, if those of you worried about deficiencies and what to eat, and if you have any chronic health issues like thyroid and all of that, please share your blood tests with us, and we'll look at them for you. All right. Bye-bye.